What's up, guys, and welcome to another episode of Gamescript, looking at the Baltimore Ravens versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in this one. Monday Night Football, part of a doubleheader that's going on tonight. And it's going to be an interesting game where the decision point is going to be whether or not perhaps to fade Derrick Henry. And I think we can build a case for both scenarios, and I'll get into it after this. What's up, guys, and welcome to another episode of Gamescript, looking at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus the Baltimore Ravens in this one. We got a 49.5-point total with Tampa Bay as 3.5-point dogs in this one. They're playing at home in Tampa Bay. This is the first game back at home since the hurricane, which displaced them, had them staying in hotels in a different town, and just a bad scene overall with that hurricane. And it should be an emotional night for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers playing at home for the first time, since that all went down. So make sure to hit the like button. I'm looking for 30 likes to put out my shorter video later on, or the next video in general. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. I'm looking for 1,100 subscribers. Only need about 40 to get there. You're going to want to subscribe to the channel so you get alerts for when these next videos come out. I put out the shorter video usually around an hour before lock, and you're going to want to get the alerts so you don't miss that because it's not a set time. So digging into this matchup, Baltimore has been on fire, and so has Tampa Bay. Baker Mayfield has looked like a different player these past couple years, but especially this year under a new offensive coordinator. Baker Mayfield is one of the hottest quarterbacks in the league, and he's just been really good. He's been one of the best fantasy outputs. He's on an MVP type of pace, facing off against Lamar Jackson, obviously in the MVP candidate talk too. So we got two really good quarterbacks going up against each other, and we're playing in a situation in Tampa Bay, like I mentioned, where the home team has some emotional advantage there. So I'm going to dig into this player pool here. One of the key decisions that we're going to have to make is going to be around Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry is expensive. I'll get you his flex salary. We're looking at about $10,800 for Derrick Henry. When we start building these lineups, I'll get a better idea, but there's a lot of expensive guys on this slate. So we're going to be having to make some decision points when it comes to some of these expensive players. And Derrick Henry has been, like one of the in basically the optimal in every week except for maybe one or two so far this season. You could faded him against Kansas City, and it would have worked out in your favor. Otherwise, he scored at least 16 DraftKings points in every game this season. Question is, how's the game script going to play out in this one? If you're looking at most of these games, there's been pretty close. The game where Henry was phased out against Kansas City played with a lead throughout most of that game and had them knocked out. If you look at the extreme other side, you see against Buffalo where they just destroyed Buffalo. He ended up having 39 DraftKings points. So you can kind of see the spectrum of how you want to play Derrick Henry just by looking at these. If you think that the Baltimore Ravens are going to be playing from behind, or you think that they're going to be struggling in this one, Derrick Henry is a good guy to fade because he's going to be very game script dependent. Lamar Jackson, on the other hand, has been in the optimal in every week that he's played. You see his lowest output is 17, but even that was enough to get him as a top 6 in the game that he played. So Lamar Jackson is going to be very tough to get away from in this matchup, especially because he's playing against Tampa Bay, a team that has a defense that can be exploited. Both these teams have weaknesses in their defenses. Baltimore's weakness is in their pass defense. They're very strong against the run, and Tampa Bay their weakness is also in the pass defense. Tampa Bay's had mixed results against the run. They held Saquon Barkley to a low point total. So you can make a case that, maybe they'll have some success against Derrick Henry, but Lamar Jackson is a guy that I probably want to keep in my lineups. Just to give you an example of how Tampa Bay has done against running quarterbacks so far this season, Jaden Daniels, 28 DraftKings points against them. Bo Nix, 19 DraftKings points against them. That was good enough for him to be the captain in that game. Let's see. Jalen Hurts, 17 DraftKings points against them. And that's about it for running quarterbacks. So you get an idea of how running quarterbacks have done against Tampa Bay this season. Now, Vita Vea is going to be an important name to keep track of. Let me check the injury report on Vita Vea. Last I checked, he was questionable, but he's going to be a big piece of the puzzle when it comes to defending the run in this one. And it looks like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers will have the services of Vita Vea against the Ravens tonight, according to Sports Illustrated, at least. So we know that Vita Vea, is likely to be in, which is good. There's going to be some more interesting, parts of this run defense. We got Levante David did not practice. William Golston did not practice. So we got a few of these guys that are going to be questionable. Let's see if we can get like a more updated injury report now that we're closer to lock here. Let's see. All right. So if I'm looking at the injury report, Mike Evans is going to be a game time decision. We're still waiting on Evans's status. That's going to be obviously an important one. Jamel Dean did not practice. I think Jamel Dean has been ruled out. That's bad for Tampa Bay's pass game defense. Good for us if we want to try to exploit that pass game. Let's see. Rashod White, limited on Thursday and Friday. He's probably going to play. Graham Barton, their center, was limited on Friday, so it looks like he might be good. And William Golston was also limited. So we got some guys that should affect the impact of how we draft this team here. So Godwin is another guy, depending on Evans' status, game time decision. Obviously, I think Evans will probably play tonight. It's going to be too big of a matchup, and he's going to try to get in this game any way that he can. Godwin's got a tough matchup because Humphrey has been playing the slot. But, as far as the output of the slot receivers against Tampa Bay, you can see that they have been giving up 16.1 DraftKings points a game to slot receivers, and they've been giving up 26.6 DraftKings points a game to wideouts. So Evans might have the better matchup in this one. If we're looking at the zone versus man coverage for these guys, let's get an idea there. Okay, so Baltimore's running man coverage at the 9th highest rate in the league, and man coverage is where Evans has a 24.6% target rate, and Godwin has the identical target rate. So, yeah, both those guys would definitely be in play tonight. Let's see. And they're both top 10 wide receivers according to PFF in fantasy points per route run versus man coverage. So these guys are both in a really good matchup tonight. I think if we wanted to get away from maybe the common build in this one, get an idea of what Baker Mayfield's ownership is in the captain. Mayfield is 10% owned in the captain. This is going to be one. We got a lot of studs in this. So this captain ownership is going to be, pretty well spread out. If we wanted to pick one of these guys, maybe we pick. Let's go with Evans in the captain. As far as his ownership, looking at 7.5% ownership. That might change if he gets ruled in tonight. But let's go with Evans, like in the captain. Let's do a build right now. I'm going to put Godwin in there too. And I'm going to put Baker in there. And I'm going to put Lamar in there. It's a lot of studs to get in there. It's going to be very difficult to build a lineup, I have a feeling, tonight, because we got so many studs in there. So if I was going in this direction, I might take out. It's going to be tough, like to choose between these high price guys. One thing that might get us different is if we had Evans in the captain and Godwin in there too. Baker Mayfield's averaging 24 DraftKings points a game versus Lamar Jackson, who's averaging 26 DraftKings points a game. But if we're thinking that Lamar Jackson is playing from behind, he's got that rushing upside. Baker Mayfield has had a lot of scrambling upside on top of it. But let's say that Lamar Jackson is doing the majority of the work in the run game. I'm going to put Zay Flowers in there too. He's been the primary target. The tandem of Zay Flowers and Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson has basically been, like in an optimal showdown lineup for Baltimore in every game this season. Zay Flowers has been in 1, 2, 3. He's been at a 3 out of 6. But I think that if we're building a storyline like this, Zay Flowers makes a lot of sense because Derrick Henry is being held at bay. And usually if they are taken to the air, Zay Flowers has been the guy that's benefited the most. And we got that weak spot on the Tampa Bay defense because Tampa Bay is giving up 15 DraftKings points a game to the slot and 22.8 DraftKings points a game to wideouts. And Flowers runs about 38% of his routes out wide, or no, 34% of his routes from the slot, and that would put him at about 66 out wide. So good matchup all around for Zay Flowers, especially in a high scoring game if we're projecting that. Now, going in this direction, we're still left with very little to play with. So I'm going to scroll down here and see if I can find a cheaper guy to get in here. We may be in a situation where we have to fade a couple of these guys. I'm going to put Shepard in there. If we wanted to go in this direction with Evans in the captain, we might have to take Godwin out, unfortunately. If I wanted to put Mayfield in there instead of Godwin, that at least gives us 5,500. Let's go to Otten. If we wanted to put Otten in there, that leaves us with 900. It's going to be a tricky lineup build for this one. This one's going to be a tough one to build. If we wanted to put, let's put Jackson and let's put Justice Hill, because if I'm fading Henry, I want to have Justice Hill at least in my lineup. And if I want to get Flowers in there too, that's going to leave me with 1,700. In that situation, I'd be looking at guys like Kolar, Ricard. Very, very slim pickings. I might have to go with an even cheaper captain in this one. This might be one of those games where we have to go with the cheap captain to justify, trying to get all these studs in. And a cheap captain option, if we're going with this game script, it might be Justice Hill. Justice Hill might be the best cheap captain for us to go with. Because we know if Henry is shut down, then Justice Hill is going to take on a bigger role in this offense, We saw it where he scored 11.5 DraftKings points a game against Kansas City. He also had a big game against Buffalo. He scored 21.6 against that weakened Buffalo defense. Let me see if we can get some information here on the matchup for Justice Hill here. All right, so according to Rich Rebar, the Bucs are 30th in receiving points allowed per game to backfields, which means that they are a bottom 2 against defending receiving backs. So that could help us out with our Justice Hill story there. So if we want to put Justice Hill in there, that gives us salary to play with. We want Lamar Jackson in there. We want, let's say, Evans and Mayfield in there, and we want Flowers. That's going to at least set us up so that we could put in options like Mark Andrews, Kate Otten, Ravens defense, Tucker. A lot of options. Bucks defense. You got so many options if you go with a cheap captain tonight. And I think that, given the circumstances of the game, cheap captain might be the way to go. We got so many studs in this game, and we got two very bad pass defenses. Lends itself to shootout potential with a game like this. I think Justice Hill makes a lot of sense when we're fading Derrick Henry in a lineup like this. Let's clear this out. Let's try it with Flowers in the captain instead. If I put Flowers in the captain and then get Justice Hill in here, that's going to leave me with 2,500. At that point, at least, I have options like Trey Palmer and Jalen McMillan. Keep in mind, Sterling Shepard has been the main guy, the main number 3. If we got rid of Evans and we put Godwin in there instead, leaves us with 2,300. Same situation, basically, except we don't have Palmer in that situation. We got McMillan. So it leaves us with options there. But let me go through the player pool. I just got into a tangent with building this lineup. I like Zay Flowers tonight. Zay Flowers has been solid for Baltimore this season, and you can see he's put up over 20 DraftKings points several games already. This is a different team with Derrick Henry on the team. Like, he just opens up so much for them as far as like the output that Lamar Jackson's able to put out with another running threat in there, but also the passing game has to be loosened up because the defenses are so focused on the run that they're not paying as much attention as they should to the passing game. And Lamar's a good passer, and that leaves guys with like Zay Flowers in good spots. Rashod Bateman, he's expensive too. Like, all these guys are expensive tonight. It's very difficult to build in this slate. But Rashod Bateman at 6,400, you can see that he's come alive. Big things were expected out of him a few years ago, and then he just kind of fell off a cliff. But you can see this year when the passing game is opened up a little bit, he's been getting 4 targets, 8 targets, 4 targets, 4 targets, 5 targets. Derrick Henry unlocked this offense for a lot of these guys. So, Rashod Bateman is in a good spot. Let me get an idea of the matchups for these Ravens against zone and all right, so Tampa's running zone coverage at the 5th highest rate, and the zone guys that are favored for targets are Nelson Aguilar and Zay Flowers. They both have over 20% target rates. So if we're looking for a cheap guy, maybe we can go with Nelson Aguilar in a build like this, and we can get away from Godwin. Yeah, still can't get it. Still can't get exactly what I want. But if we wanted to do what I did earlier, well, I can't put You can't put in Evans because he's more expensive than, or can't put in Godwin because Godwin is expensive than Mayfield is. Let's take out Aguilar. I really think in this situation, I'm going for Palmer or McMillan to finish out this build. I think that, Palmer had 3 targets last week. He's been hurt for a couple weeks. He's questionable tonight. McMillan really did not get any targets. Sterling Shepard is a guy that played with Baker in college, and he's joined the team. You saw instantly he's getting like 4 targets, 2 targets, 5 targets. Sterling Shepard's like a sneakier guy on this slate. If you wanted to get away from Hill and go with Shepard, I mean, that leaves you with that 3,300 that you need to get a guy like Aguilar in there. At that point, we're completely committed to, like a passing on both sides of this game, which I think is in play just with, like how this defenses work out and how both these players are, solid passing teams as well as Ravens being a solid run team. If we did want to go with Henry and the captain, I think you want to get Jackson in there and Flowers, like this tandem of the 3 of them. You see how many times that's hit. So if you got the 3 of those guys, they all hit versus the Commanders in a game that was 30-23. They all hit versus the Bengals, which is game 41-38. And then they all hit versus the Raiders. That was a game that they lost 23-26. It was a close game, though. Derrick Henry only had 16 DraftKings points, though. So while he was a high scorer on the slate, that might not have been enough to get him into an optimal lineup. But it gives you an idea that these guys they can hit together, or they can hit like without Flowers. So we don't necessarily need Flowers in the lineup that we're putting in these other 2 guys. Although it'll be good if you're able to get all those guys in there. Well, let's put in Evans. At this point, we're left with 4,200 left per guy. I might lean towards getting Shepard in this one to get us some salary relief there. Leaves us with 4,800 per guy. Let's get Andrews in there since we have Jackson in there. Actually, let's get Likely in there. Let's say Likely catches a touchdown in this one. He's the one who's getting targeted in the red zone. At that point, we're left with options like Aguilar, who I talked about earlier, and let's see, Palmer and McMillan, guys like that. I think I'd lean Aguilar in this build just to give another target to Lamar Jackson. Or you could go Ravens D in this one. I wouldn't put Baker beyond, like making some mistakes. Or you could go with Tucker, who was pretty good in that last game. He got 37 DraftKings points against New Orleans. He is probably like the 3rd guy. Oh, no, we got Hill. We could put Hill in there too and go double on the running backs in this one. That would be an option. They give you a 4-2 build in favor of Baltimore. But, at least in this direction, you're left with options. If you wanted to swap out Likely for Andrews, that leaves you a little bit more options. You could get Otten in there. You can get, Ravens D, Justice Hill again. So a lot of ways that you can go in this one. I think in general, the way that I would envision this game, playing out ideally for building a lineup away from Derrick Henry would be Tampa Bay gets out to an early lead. They're aggressive in the beginning of this game. They get out to an early lead. They force Jackson to the air. Let's say in addition to that, we got Winfield back for the Bucs defense. We got Vita Vea, and we got on top of that, Derrick Henry doesn't have a good history against Tampa Bay in general. Those games were all with Tennessee, obviously, but he hasn't scored higher than 45 rushing yards, and I don't think he's gotten any touchdowns at all against them. So it's not a lock for Henry in this matchup. But that's obviously with a different offense. They didn't have Lamar Jackson to take away some of that attention. But let's say, for the sake of argument, that they're able to hold Henry at bay again. Then we can build this lineup without having to worry about Derrick Henry's salary in it, and we can build it around like the passing games of each of these teams. And when you're doing that, you can incorporate Justice Hill into it, and you can work like a mix and match of how you want to envision the passing games playing out for this. You can go cheap captain with a guy like Justice Hill too in a situation like that. Maybe Justice Hill becomes more heavily involved in this game, or you can get like Likely in the captain if you think that let's say that Likely has some success like he did against Kansas City in week 1. And if we're able to put Likely in there, opens things up for us pretty significantly. We can get Baker back in this lineup. Left with 5,700 per guy. Let's say we wanted to get Flowers in here too. Leaves us with 2,800. So we're still in that range where like Aguilar, McMillan, and guys like that, Palmer. I would probably lean McMillan in this build. I would hope that I'd be able to get up to Justice Hill somehow, but it's going to be tough to build lineups in this one. I think you stick with like Aguilar or something like that. If you wanted to take out Flowers and maybe go Bateman, I wouldn't take out Flowers. I would have either Flowers or Henry in every lineup with Jackson. It's just really tough to get away from those guys. Like, those guys have been putting up the points every week. So I would just stick with Flowers and just go cheap at this last spot instead of more balanced. So that's a rundown. I'm going to be putting out a 2-game slate video in a little bit. I just wanted to get this out here for you guys to give you an idea of how difficult it's going to be to build these showdown lineups, at least in this game. A lot easier in the other game, which I already have up on my YouTube page. So make sure to check that out. And good luck, guys. I'll put out the 2-game slate in a little while. Thanks, guys.